Assalamu alaikum everyone. In today's lesson, we'll be discussing the factors that affect the quantity of the four factors of production. Starting off with land, we will see that what are the factors that incur or bring in change in the quantity of land. Okay? So when we look at the quantity of land, so we see that in land we have resources which can be characterized as the renewable resources and non-renewable resources. So when we exhaust or exploit the resources of land, if they're not replenished or refilled with the same level or same amount, then we eventually fall short of those resources. So the resources need to be replaced as quickly as they are being used, or even quicker than the amount of consumption of those resources. So if, and for the non-renewable resources where the replacement is pretty hard or at times even impossible, the more we use them, there is a depletion of those resources and we face the scarcity of those resources. So in order to increase the quantity of land, we need to, for example, if we're talking about crops, then we need to sow more seeds of crops in order to have a greater yield or a greater amount of crops grown for the coming years or for the coming time. Moving on to labor, always keep in mind whenever you're talking about labor is being the quantity of labor is being affected by two factors. Number one is the number of labor available, and the second one is the number of working hours. Number of working hours each labor is willing and able to work. Willing and able to work. Now, looking at the two factors of labor, we'll see that what are the elements that impact the quantity of labor. First of all, looking at the number of workers available, we see that the size of population is one of the determinant which provides that how much worker would be available in a country or for a business. And then the age structure. More you have a working population that lies between the age of 18 till 55 or 60, the greater you'll have people available, and the mobility of workers for working at different occupations is going to be greater too. Then we see the retirement age. The quicker the people retire, the lesser labor force you'll have. Then in the developing countries, we see that there is an early school leaving age. Therefore, at a very young age, people are willing to work, even if they're not like in the age of, they do not lie in the age of working, but still they are willing to work. And then the aptitude of working women. Now, attitude to working women, like in the developing nations or in the cultural constraints where people do not allow women to work. So as half the population consists of women, so when women are not allowed to work in some of the countries, then that leads to the decrease of the number of workers available for different occupations. And moving on to the second determinant, that is number of hours for which they work. Like first we looked at the number of workers available. Now we moved on to the number of hours for which they work. So the first element that impacts the number of hours is the length of average day. Like how long is an average day for which a worker has to work. Then the duration of overtime. Then it says the length of holidays taken by workers. If like workers are always on vacation or always absent from work, then the amount of output produced is going to decrease. Then in that particular occupation or in that particular country, is there a greater trend towards full-time work or part-time work? And then it's the amount of time lost through sickness and illness. So like some people are always making the excuses of that being sick or not being healthy enough to work. Now we'll move on to the quantity of capital. Here there are going to be certain definitions that would be explained later. But when we look at capital, which includes machinery and tools and equipment that are used in the production of capital, so we see that if you have to increase the quantity of capital, then you have to bring in more in you have to invest more into latest machinery and equipment and bring in new technology into your business. So increased investment would increase the quantity of labor, quantity of capital. So the total investment that you make in a business is known as gross investment. And when that particular machinery becomes obsolete or worn out, that is known as wearing and tearing of capital, which is called depreciation. So when we look at depreciation, that is the wearing and tearing of capital. So when a capital gets worn out, uh, that is known as depreciation. Now we move on to the quantity of enterprise. So basically, enterprise is a business venture uh, that has been run or been initiated by an entrepreneur. So quantity of enterprise can be improved by the government's initiative if the government is there to encourage uh, the infant industries to come up and to prosper. Then they can do, like, they can ease their policies and encourage them through providing them loans, interest free loans, and then reducing the taxation on the newly developed businesses and providing trainings for entrepreneurship, like providing creating programs or uh, inviting the overseas trainers to come and train more people towards entrepreneurship. Now, looking at the key terms, investment. Investment is the spending on capital. Okay. So, what would be the gross investment? It would be the total spending on capital. And depreciation is the wearing and tearing of those capital, how the capital becomes obsolete over time. And what is net investment? Net investment will always be defined as gross investment, gross investment minus investment minus depreciation. That is investment. Now, moving towards negative investment, where the depreciation or the wearing and tearing of asset or the obsolescence of assets is greater than the investment in those assets or the new assets that have been brought in. This is it for this lesson. If you have any questions or query, you can ask me on the Google Classroom or email me on the following email address to ask any question. Thank you.